Okay, I'm on. Impact, first round. Right off the right side. Impact. Impact, you're hitting him dead center. Impact.
Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about red dot magnifiers. I'm a pretty big fan of a red dot and magnifier combination, but it does have its downsides, same as with every optics combination. So we're going to talk about what it's good at, what it's not good at, and then some general recommendations I have if you're thinking about using a magnifier. First of all, I think some guys get confused about what a magnifier is actually for. It's tempting to think of a magnifier as something that extends the maximum range of your rifle, but that's not exactly the case. A better way to think about it is that a magnifier allows you to make use of the maximum point-blank range of your red dot. If you slap a red dot onto a regular carbine, you have many choices of battle zeros. The distance you've chosen for your close zero is also going to affect the distance of your far zero, but that also depends on the cartridge you're using, the barrel length, etc. There's a great video from Delta34 here on YouTube that I always reference whenever I talk about this stuff. It'll be up in the right-hand corner. Let's just consider a 36/300 yard zero, which is pretty attainable with a lot of cartridges out of a 16-inch AR. With a 36/300 yard zero, the bullet is going to be on target at 36 yards on its way up, and then it will be on target again at about 300 yards on its way back down. It's only really going to be affected by drop past 300 yards, and even then it'll actually take a while before it falls so far that it's off the target. So on a torso-sized target, a 36/300 yard zero will probably allow you to make hits with a center hold out to even farther than that. Possibly even, say, out to 400 yards. So yeah, in theory, you can engage out to 400 yards with a normal red dot. Actually being able to see your target and get the red dot onto the target at that distance is another thing entirely, and that's where the magnifier comes into play. A little bit of magnification always comes in handy when trying to identify and locate targets. Some guys shoot on a wide open, known distance range with high contrast, very large targets set up nicely against a berm, labeled for distance, always in the same place, and that leads to them grossly overestimating the capability of just a red dot by itself, or even iron sights for that matter. Put a reduced sized piece of gray steel out in the wilderness and try to shoot that from 400 yards, you probably won't be able to even find it, even though you're the one who set it up. So a magnifier helps you actually make use of the fact that your maximum point-blank range on a red dot-equipped AR is actually pretty damn far. It also allows you to retain all of the other benefits of having a red dot, unlike an LPVO or an ACOG. Bright illumination, super low parallax, no distortion in the image, ability to shoot with both eyes open, from weird positions, all that stuff. I hope I don't have to be the one in 2023 to tell you what red dots are good at. Also, when it comes to shooting passively under night vision, red dots and holographics are still undefeated. If you do want to expand your capability beyond the maximum point-blank range of your red dot, there are red dots that have more complicated reticles. EOTech has the 3-2 and 3-4 reticles. SIG has the Romeo 4, XT Pro, 4T Pro, and 8T that have the much more complicated ballistic circle dot reticle. Those aren't the only examples, but they are the ones I like the most. I don't think these more complicated reticles add nearly as much capability as you might think. First of all, flip magnifiers tend to have fairly low magnification. The ones that have higher magnification don't really work very well in the first place, which we'll get to later on. So on a 5.56 gun, if your center dot is an effective combat hold out to 400 yards, that's about as much as you can probably expect to see and engage with a 3-power magnifier. The one additional drop dot on the EOTech EXPS 3-2 reticle does seem like it could come in handy. The third and fourth dot on the EXPS 3-4 and on the SIG Romeo ballistic circle reticle are unlikely to be useful for much more than area fire. Consider also that these reticles don't have a range-finding system built in, like on an ACOG. You can use the ranging reticle on an ACOG to determine that your target is at 600 meters and engage with that same line. Alright, let's see if I can get this next piece out before the angry comments come in. Yes, there are magnifiers that go up to 5 or 6 power. There are also magnifiers like the Primary Arms ACSS Pegasus that have range-finding ability built in. If that's what you really want, then go for it, but I think that's getting pretty far away from the use case of a red dot and magnifier system. I haven't used every single brand and model of magnifier on the market, but I have used most of them. I've used the EOTech G33, G43, G45, the Vortex Micro 3 and 6, the Juliet 3, 4, and 6, the Holosun 3X, and the older Trigicon 3X back when they were still made in China. I gather they've moved production to the Philippines, so hopefully the quality has gone up a little bit since then. Based on my experience, I would not recommend a 5 or 6x magnifier at all to anyone for any reason. When you step the magnification up too far, the eye box suffers and it becomes much more difficult to get your eye behind the magnifier, which is already a little bit more difficult than you might expect if you're used to using LPVOs or traditional magnified scopes. There's also the fact that a sudden switch from 1x to 6x is a pretty drastic jump in magnification. If you were using an LPVO, you could dial it up while keeping an eye on your target. Not so much when you're flipping a magnifier in front of your face because it might disrupt your rifle position and it will also block your view momentarily. 3x or 4x magnifiers seem to be about the sweet spot. It's the most usable magnification most of the time, and they're also the easiest to get behind and the fastest to use. If you really need more magnification than that, you're probably better suited with a different optic entirely. Next up, let's talk about some general tips and tricks for using magnifiers. Number one, people tend to assume that the magnifier has to be really close to the red dot in order to work, but that's not true. If you need to move the magnifier farther back in order to get proper eye relief, that's fine. You probably won't notice any difference to the appearance of the magnified red dot, but if you do, it will be extremely minimal. Also, I'm not a fan of flip to center magnifier mounts because it sort of defeats the main reason that I want a red dot and a magnifier in the first place, which is to retain full night vision capability. It's more difficult to get your nod behind a red dot when there's a big fucking magnifier sitting right there for you to clonk your tube on. It's easily the worst part of the ACOG RMR stack experience, so there's no need to replicate it with a red dot magnifier. Another thing to remember is that magnifiers don't have to be zeroed. The turrets on a magnifier allow you to center the dot in the middle of the window, which is for convenience and usability, and also because your eyeball sort of wants the dot to be in the middle, it just feels a lot better. Most red dot flip magnifiers do not perfectly return to the same position every single time, so sometimes your dot is going to be ever so slightly off center. That's true for all of them, including the really nice ones on the EOTech and SIG magnifiers, which I think are both made by American Defense Manufacturing. Lastly, before we start talking about specific models of magnifier, let's get into some of the interesting fringe benefits of using a magnifier and some of the weird problems that you might not expect. One of the best things about a magnifier is that you can just attach it to any gun equipped with a red dot and instantly gain a little bit of capability. You don't have to re-zero anything or mess with anything on the gun, it's just an automatic increase in your ability to identify and engage targets at range. That also means that they're very easy to share with a team. If somebody else is like, damn dude, I really need that magnifier so I can sit up here and watch over an area, then just take it off your gun and put it on his gun. You can also detach a magnifier from a gun and just hand it to somebody to use as a handheld monocular. If you're going into a situation where you know you absolutely do not want the magnifier on your gun, you can take it off and stick it in a backpack, and you've immediately removed a pretty clunky accessory from your gun and probably knocked about 10 ounces off the top of it. Magnifiers are also, in my opinion at least, more robust than variable scopes. A magnifier is a prism optic kind of like an ACOG. It's a very robust design that doesn't have a lot of moving parts. Also, if your magnifier does break, you just flip it out of the way or take it off the gun and you've still got a red dot that works. Also, like with most prism sights, magnifiers tend to have pretty decent field of view, although you do pay for it a little bit in the eye relief department. There are some weird downsides of magnifiers as well, or at least one that I can think of off the top of my head, which is that you're adding an extra pair of lenses to your optics setup. I shot a 2-gun match in the heavy rain with a red dot and magnifier combination, and it was causing me all sorts of problems. It was pretty difficult to see through 4 lenses with rainwater on them, actually 5 lenses because I also had eye protection on and there was rain on those as well. Hopefully I can show you guys a clip from it, but before every shot I had to wipe off 5 lenses, and then the muzzle blast and shaking from the gun firing would spray more water back onto all of those lenses again. I have never felt more blind in my entire life. Something we need to be cognizant of is that magnifiers, just like every other magnified optic, have an eye box and an eye relief to take into consideration. Very broadly speaking, the exit pupil of a magnifier is similar to a prism optic of the same magnification or an LPVO set to the same magnification. So, if you're looking at a 3x magnifier and you're trying to get an idea of what the experience getting behind it might be like, it will more or less be similar to a 3x prism sight or an LPVO at 3x. So like with other magnified optics, if you have a very tall mounted magnifier, you might have an issue getting behind it quickly, which is kind of the point of a magnifier in the first place. This can be a problem especially because we want to use magnifiers in conjunction with red dots because we want to be able to use the red dots with night vision, and almost everybody who uses a red dot for night vision will put it on a pretty tall riser. So if you put your red dot on a tall riser, your magnifier has to be on a tall riser to match, and now you're no longer getting a comfortable and stable cheek weld, and that's going to make using the magnifier a lot more difficult from a standing position. If you're in a well-supported position, a 5 or 6 power magnifier, even one on a very tall riser, can still be quite usable. But that might not be why you put a magnifier on the gun in the first place, so keep that in mind. Also, something I've noticed is that the taller magnifier mounts from Scalarworks and Unity do not play very well with night vision. Both of them occupy the space behind your red dot, which is where your night vision tube is supposed to go when you're passive aiming. The Unity flip to center magnifier mount is the most egregious because it really doesn't go anywhere. The Scalarworks mount sort of appears to go off to the side, but it leaves the entire center part of the mount still pretty much in the way. So if you're planning to use either of those mounts with a magnifier, be prepared to take them off when the nods come out. This magnifier mount gets in the way.
Mm-hmm. It's even worse.
It bumps you when you're shooting, doesn't it?
That's annoying.
Yeah. Imagine that, but it's actually directly in line. Like the whole fucking Unity high mount for night vision, and it makes our magnifier mount makes night vision completely fucking impossible.
One last thing to point out is that I've always been really obsessed with matching red dot and magnifier brands, and a lot of that is just because of aesthetics and my OCD going completely haywire if I try to put an EOTech magnifier behind an aim point. That's just something that should not be done. But the real reason, if you must know, is that every optics manufacturer has a different idea of what constitutes lower third co-witness, and also a lot of optics have different size windows. So an EOTech magnifier with the lower 1/3 spacer lines up nicely behind an EOTech EXPS 3 series optic, which sits at lower 1/3 and has a very large window. You put an EOTech G33 behind any other optic in the world, and it probably isn't going to line up very well, because the optic may have a different window size, or the manufacturer may have a different idea of what lower 1/3 is supposed to mean. A SIG Juliet lines up really nice behind a Romeo 4 XT Pro, and they look so good together, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you found some of this information useful, and if you have any questions, as always, feel free to let me know in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so via Subscribestar, link in the video description. You'll be able to watch early videos, some bonus videos, you'll get access to the secret Discord channel with all the cat pictures, and you get to watch the archived live show that I periodically do with Brassfax and a rotating cast of other internet nerds. There's also a link in the video description to my Linktree page, which will have various important links to social media stuff, as well as any other sponsors or channel partners, so check that stuff out. See you guys next time.
Last round! You've heard of first round hits. Get ready for last round hits with the new 22 long rifle. The cartridge for the 20th century.